I spent the last 3 years analyzing the structure of social media platforms, as well as the user's interaction and analyzing the surrounding problems. And here's a summation of some of the findings. In the United States, according to some Supreme Court rulings, such as the Peckingham versus North Carolina case, social media is considered a public forum, but a discrepancy exists as social media platforms are private companies. And if a social media platform isn't US owned or US based, would it make it a public forum in the United States, regardless of the guidelines imposed on that same platform? With the rise of social media, there's been a desecration of the social norm, the common agreement of how to act, partially due to the removal of physical social boundaries. What is considered truly acceptable on social media if there isn't a true standard of the modern social norm in the internet space? Free speech isn't free on social media unless it fits specific agendas. A form of intentional censorship is the silent moderator, someone who acts like a regular user but is discreetly working to control various narratives, possibly causing people to fall into entrapment, aggravating and distracting conversations, and intentionally setting up users to be discredited. Observed discrediting methods done by and used by silent mods is emotional abuse, to include gaslighting and triangulation, threats of various capacities to include true threats. They don't need to be carried out, but if there's an intention for someone to even intend to threat, that technically is considered a true threat. The pushing of harmful ideologies, hate speech, which there isn't an actual definition of hate speech, and fighting words, which is a word that would cause someone to get angry or have a physical reaction. The discrepancy of what constitutes a fighting word is if someone's on social media and they have a physical reaction to what is being said to them by another user, it should technically be considered a fighting word, right? Public figures, officials, or those in association with them who intentionally tamper with a social media advocate's input, even if it's indirectly, violates a user's First Amendment right, especially when it comes to the topic of viewpoint-based discrimination. Obscenity, which is an exclusion of the First Amendment, has to follow the Miller test, which it has to pass all three parts. The first is whether the average person applying contemporary community standards would find that the work taken as a whole appeals to the prudent interest, whether their work depicts or describes in a patently offensive way sexual conduct specifically defined by the applicable state law, and whether the work taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. A possible motive for the TikTok ban is maybe there are a lot of people in the herd waking up to how the specialized class might not actually be the rational thinkers, but those who only have an insulation of significant wealth, and that is coming from Walter Lippmann's Spectator Democracy Theory. The distrust of mass media or major media is one of the reasons behind the rise in the belief of conspiratorial thinking. Social media platforms cannot address the safety of their users, especially when it comes to minors, because often than not, when people have a serious concern that they want to bring up, there isn't an immediate response, or in case of the supposed silent mod, when a silent mod is hurting users and they are reported on, platforms don't do anything to address the mods. With the increase of screen time amongst all internet users in conjunction with the rise of AI, media literacy is more important than ever. And this term of media literacy that I'm referring to is the questioning of the intent of the media that's being consumed to protect against its negative impacts. The threat of cancel culture is causing people to not even speak their ideas at all, thus resulting in complacency, which that itself is very dangerous. Internet dogpiling is often observed to be a mass grouping of undirected energy during a form of discourse, resulting in no such betterment of the said situation or of society. With the abuse of political words, ideologies, and items of advocacy, they, in some instances, are intentionally being devalued to maintain oppressive systems.